Today's gospel lesson is from Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. Jesus visits the home of Mary and Martha. Now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha received him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the sovereign's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went to Jesus and said, "Sovereign, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her to help me." But the sovereign answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. One this is needful. Mary has chosen a good portion, which shall not be taken away from her." May God add understanding to the reading of the gospel. Please join us in singing the Gloria, which is printed in your bulletin.
Glory be to the Maker, and to the Christ, and to the Holy Ghost, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Amen.
Let us pray. Heavenly Parent, thank you for the opportunity to deliver this message. I ask that you guide my words, have them seek out those that are needing this message today. I ask this through your child, Jesus Christ. Amen. So I can just sit here and just see the conversation. Roy says, "Mark, when do you want to take off and have some vacation time?" And Mark says, "Let me look at the sermons that are coming up." And he's flipping through and he says, "I want to preach on that one." so he leaves me with the story of Mary and Martha, which is fine. It's a hard sermon for me because the majority of the people in this church, including David, are Marthas. And I find it interesting that Mark just sort of like, "Nah, I'm not going to touch that one. Let Tammy have it." Or he could have given it to Marla, any of us, because we understand Martha. And doing some research, Mary and Martha are actually mentioned more than once in the Bible. These are Jesus' buds. Every time he's in this area, he goes and stays with Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus. So he has a deep affection and friendship with these people. And the interesting thing is, those two women, those are actually some of his disciples. And they're pretty gutsy because at this point in time in the history of Jesus Christ, it's not too long off until he's crucified. So they are bringing into their home somebody that eventually will be called a criminal, that eventually will be crucified. And of course we know that at one point in time after his crucifixion, many of his followers had to hide so as not to be persecuted or killed or stoned or hung up on crosses upside down. I find it interesting that most people don't realize how many disciples were female. And Jesus, throughout his teachings, brings women in, brings cripples in, brings criminals in, brings anybody that understands and shares that message of caring for one another. But being busybodies that we mothers are, we also get a little resentful. And a lot of people say, well, Martha's being rebuked by Jesus. No, she's never rebuked by him. She's just patted on the hand and said, Martha, remember why I'm even here, why you're even here. What he wants more than anything is to present this message of caring and love for everyone around you. And for people to listen and pass that message on. Not only in word, but also in deed. Martha got the deed part. She was going to make sure everyone who came to her home were comfortable and ready to receive that message and hear that message. But she forgot the key person that needed to listen to the message along with all of the guests, herself. I don't know how many of you watch Hulu, but there's a show on Hulu called The Handmaid's Tale. And in The Handmaid's Tale, they call the women who do the serving and cooking and housekeeping Marthas. And I never really caught that until I read the gospel for this week, and it was sort of like, oh, of course. They're Marthas. They're people who care and take care of and keep the world running. Now, there's nothing wrong with Mary. And Jesus reminds Martha that Mary's doing what she needs to do, which is listen. The other thing is that he wants Martha to stop and listen. And that's one of the things that he wants the entire world to do, especially now, is to stop and listen to one another. I listen to a lot of talk radio on the way home from work, and unfortunately, I really like some commentators, but they're so Republican, it's a scary place to be. But the other day I was listening to one, and they were spouting stuff about President Obama that I quite frankly knew was untrue. And I had just read about this trolling that's going on by the Russians again, and realized this sermon is what's going on right now. There are so many Marthas out there that aren't stopping long enough to listen. When that small voice inside you says, that's not right, we need to stop and listen. These past few months, Regina and I have had to do a lot more listening than we want. We're used to doing. And that may be another reason why this sermon happened to appear at this point in time in our lives. We're so used to doing that we don't always listen. So all Jesus wanted Martha to do was stop, listen. He wasn't rebuking her. He was just reminding her what it was all about. There comes a point in time that every one of us need to stop, listen. We don't have to do. We just have to be. There there are enough God spirits out there to help us. We just got to find them and listen.